Greetings and welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. What is going on, guys? Early chatters are in. And we are live on Rockfin. Hello to the people of Rockfin. Please come hang out with me on Rockfin and say hi, ROKFIN. Would love to see you and read your chats on Rockfin. I had a couple of tips yesterday on Rockfin, and I wanted to thank the people that tipped me on Rockfin yesterday. Thank you. Always super nice to get the tips on Rockfin. Okay, so I saw something about G. Demarest. Welcome back to the chats. Haven't seen you in a while. Talking about Holland now has an 8 p.m. curfew. Quebec cities have an 8 p.m. curfew. It's a little bit wild. What do you guys think about the curfews in the face of COVID? Is it overreach? Is it draconian? Does COVID-19 only come out at night? Does COVID-19 only infect people at night and not during the day, or more so at night? Have they done studies that more people catch COVID at night than they do during the day? I don't know. For the boss, I say guys like Cartman. That's funny. That's funny. I know that there are curfews going on in Florida, or there was. And there was kind of like a partial kind of soft lockdown here in Los Angeles or in California. I don't know that it involved any curfews necessarily, but they instituted some stay-at-home orders, and then the sheriff was like, "We're not going to enforce them." So you didn't really hear much of that afterwards. And to be honest, there's a lot of people here that are like, again, not Trumpers, not right-wingers, not like, not any of those people that you would like to categorize them as. They're just regular old people, mostly liberals in California. There are a lot of those people that are just like, F this noise. What's up, my Rockfin crew? We have Urban Hermit, Poppy Davis, and Raza Eco Warrior. What's up, guys? Robert Arajo says number of cases in QC is at Quebec. I don't know. Has dropped 5 straight days. Limit parties and gatherings. I guess that's what the curfews are for, I suppose. I don't know. I don't knows. Billy Joe Schmo says, in Florida, there is no curfew. Everything is open. You wouldn't even know there was a pandemic except for the mask worn by a few. Right. I know that different places are reacting in different ways. For the Biosphere says, nighttime curfews make me wonder if something is happening in our skies at night. Judy Truitt says the Navajo Res has curfews almost every weekend. Interesting. Rich Diana says, we're Americans. We're free. I don't feel so good. Exactly. So G. Demarest, I guess maybe it's working. Your numbers are dropping in BC. Or that's not Quebec. That's British Columbia. Is that due to any curfews or lockdowns? Or is that just due to other things, other regulations instituted or protocols, whatever you want to call it? Annie the Gardener, why the F did Citizen Kane call his sledge Rosebud anyway? I think it was the brand of sledge. I'm not sure. If I remember the movie correctly. Kuro Hike says that's what it feels. If you really wanted to address a healthcare crisis, it seems to me you would implement and enforce policies that deal with health, like passing emergency health care. I agree with you. G. Demarest, where I live, 63% of the population are from Asia. Everyone wears a mask. Sure. No curfews in BC, I'm assuming. Just distancing and mask wearing. Okay. I mean, there's general mask wearing here and general distancing going on. It seems about like half the population is super paranoid and super sketched out, and the other half are like, yeah. So, pick your side, which half you want to be on. Yes, Raza, the brand of sled was Rosebud. Right. I saw Rich Diana. I saw somebody wearing a double mask. Okie dokie. Triple mask. Wrap your head in cellophane. I don't know. That might actually be effective. Francis Madigan says, you're just being asked to wear a mask, not a Nickelback t-shirt. Good one. Good one. I feel like if you just wear a mask and wash your hands and, have some hand sanitizer with you, right? So when you get out of the store, sanitize your hands. When you get done ordering food, sanitize your hands. When you get done getting your delivery from the pizza guy, wash your hands. Like, seriously, it's really not that hard. It's just like some very simple things. Very, very simple things. You don't have to wear a full-on hazmat suit and a plastic face shield and 3 poly layer thick gloves. You don't have to do all that. Just do some very simple things, and you could go a long way. Robert Arajo says cops in Quebec are making drug busts and raiding homes, handing out fines on the regular. Okay. Anyways, yeah. Urban Hermit says the curfews are to stop people from drinking and relaxing discipline, but bars are closed anyways. Right. Raza, cut it out. Stop it. Urban Hermit says 8 p.m. curfew in Germany as well. Wow. Anyways, we got 5 watching on Rockfin. Please come watch me on Rockfin and join the chat. All right, we're going to cover a few things. This won't be long, but I don't want to get into the habit of saying my video won't be long, and then the video ends up being 50 minutes long. So my intent is not to be long. Anyways, let's look at this. The costly collateral damage from Elon Musk's Starlink fleet. Excuse me. A colossal chess game of immense consequences. This is from May 27th, 2020. A colossal chess game of immense consequences is being fought in outer space right now. On March 18th and April 22nd, 2020, 2 rockets from SpaceX owned by billionaire Elon Musk each put 60 satellites into orbit. Those launches are but the 6th and 7th in a series intended to rapidly make 1,584 satellites available. This aim is to create a satellite network called Starlink. If Musk has his way, by 2025, no less than 11,943 of his satellites will circle the Earth. You will be embedded in a web of satellite connectivity. Are you ready? Who was it that was talking about being saturated from space by 5G? I think a few people have been talking about that. Or whatever. Whatever the rays they're going to shoot on down. Pew, pew, pew. The ultimate result will be a staggering 42,000. 42,000 satellites. This mind-boggling number must be compared to the 8,000 satellites sent into orbit since the Soviet Sputnik, of which 2,218 are still in operation. So that's how many are in the skies right now. Why such outsized ambitions? To implement his dream of a multiplanetary society and to fund it by providing all solvent Earthlings with high-speed internet access. That's funny that they put that in parentheses. Solvent. So we want to provide all except for maybe all the poor. Musk would first target the 3 or 4% of the U.S. population living in remote areas or on island. The financial benefits of providing internet access to such a tiny slice of the nation are not obvious. The polar regions are not known for their density of wealthy but undeserved American citizens, for example. Could the expected profitability come from the U.S. defense spending? Could it? The United States maintains hundreds of overseas bases and has already expressed its interest in using SpaceX and putting satellites in a low Earth orbit, and also for Starlink. Yeah. There is an upshot to privatizing all of these, privatizing the space program and your information and so, all of that stuff. And soldiers and the U.S. military, privatizing as much of it as possible makes the government less culpable for any wrongdoings. Light pollution and traffic jams in orbit. Whatever the potential benefits of such a system, one of the disastrous consequences would be light pollution. As they traveled across the skies, thousands of Starlink satellites would effectively make astronomical images useless by leaving long luminous trails. At the March 9th Satellite 2020 conference keynote speech, Elon Musk dismissed those worries and claimed that his satellites will do no harm to astronomical research. If need be, they will be painted black, and that will be that. This idea was tested with satellite 1130 DarkSat. The results were unconvincing, to say the least. The next generation is supposed to be less luminous than the faintest stars that can be seen with the unaided eye, but this is still far too bright for astronomers' ultra-sensitive instruments, which can observe stellar objects 4 billion times fainter than that threshold. Other satellite operators are worried too. The low Earth orbit region is already heavily used by scientific remote sensing and telecom satellites, as well as the International Space Station. A large-scale increase in the number of satellites would increase the risk of space collisions and the ensuing multiplication of debris. In the worst-case scenario, it could render the LEO, or low Earth orbit, and near-space environment unusable. The first incident already took place on September 2nd, 2019. The European Space Agency was forced to move away one of its Earth observation satellites to avoid a collision after Starlink refused to change path of its satellite. Did you guys know anything about this? Did anybody hear anything about that? I didn't. Elon Musk asserts that all the satellites be equipped with thrusters to make them fall back on Earth once they reach the end of their active life, but that doesn't reduce the risk while they're operational. Waste in outer space, waste on Earth. Since the first launch, 6 Starlink satellites have already failed. If a mere 5% of Starlink's satellites broke down during their estimated lifespan of 5 to 7 years, they would add many thousands of fragments of space debris to the 20,000 already under surveillance. Musk initially planned to put a quarter of his constellation at the altitude of 690 miles. 75% were due to be placed no higher than 370 miles. Below this altitude, residual atmospheric drag will eventually cause a failed satellite to fall out of orbit. On April 17th, 2020, SpaceX modified its plans and requested permission for all of its satellites to orbit lower than 600 kilometers or lower than 370 miles. This reduces the risk of broken down satellite staying in high Earth orbit for centuries, but increases congestion in the low Earth orbit region. Beyond the operational risks, building, launching, and maintaining such a gigantic network of satellites would require an enormous amount of raw materials and energy. Here we go. A lot of resources being used. Unlike the geostationary satellites commonly used by telecoms, Starlink satellites will stay in a low Earth orbit and cross the visible sky of a given location for just a few minutes. To follow and connect them, buyers will have to use purpose-built phased array antennas. So everybody's going to need these antennas to actually use these things. To make them affordable, they would have to be mass-produced. And guess who's going to build them? SpaceX has asked permission for 1 million of them for starters. We got to build more stuff, guys. Build more stuff. More cars and more electric cars, more batteries, more phased array antennas, more spaceships, more satellites, more. It's going to be great. The future is going to be great. More troublingly, competitors are sharpening their knives. Kuiper is backed by Amazon, OneWeb by billionaire Greg Weiler, and Hongyan is Chinese. Just as with electrical scooters, investors are rushing into massive production, and the results could be disastrous. Such unbridled competition has negative consequences for the environment, from the environmental point of view, as well as from the security and business one. The theory is that whoever is first past the post will gain near monopoly power, cornering the potentially colossal market. We could see several redundant satellite networks duke it out in the skies, yet there will be only one winner, or none. Privatization of the commons. On March 9th, 2020, Elon Musk claimed that thanks to Starlink, anybody will be able to watch high-def movies, play video games, and do all the things they want to do without noticing speed. And all we got to do is destroy the planet for this. It's going to be awesome, guys. Thus, Musk explicitly underlines his wish to reinforce already massively energy-guzzling digital activities, such as video streaming and online video games. These consume just below the whole electricity consumption of Europe. If you want figures, the world digital energy consumption of 3,834 terawatt hours expected in 2020 is comparable to the 4,000 terawatt hours or 4,077 terawatt hours for European electricity in 2018. Their share of world greenhouse gas emissions is already 4% and could double to 8% by 2025. That's not long, that's 4 years from now. Doubling in 4 years. Musk's declaration ends on an ominous note, in essence saying my clients will be able to do whatever they want, just as I am able to do whatever I want. The Federal Communications Commission appears to be ready to give Musk its blessing. After all, the Commission's Space Department is not shy about its priorities: authorize more satellites faster with much less regulation. Thus, the American authority tasked with regulating U.S. telecoms, which recently decided to drop the net neutrality principle, turns a blind eye to the privatization of space by a corporation that wants to take over the low Earth orbit region. All this is in the spirit of the 2015 Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act, which allows U.S. industries to engage in the commercial exploration and exploitation of space resources. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty declared outer space to be a common good of humankind. Today, this may seem quaint to some, but it is more necessary than ever. Yeah. Also, remember that Musk was like, I'm going to start, remember in the middle of the pandemic lockdown, the original first one in the US? Musk was like, I'm going to start my factory up again to Gavin Newsom, and I don't care. I don't care about your lockdown. I don't care about your restrictions. We're going to get my workers back to work, and we're going to start my factory again because people need their electric cars. So he really cares about public health. Dang it, all the crap stank. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on here. For some reason, my buttons just decided to not work. Anyways, sorry. Osama says space farce. How about space fart? Someone also says brain chipped pigs in space. That was a great one. I remember that one. It was awesome. For the Biosphere says the Starlink radiation covering Earth can't be healthy for carbon life. Lightning Rod asks, so ban the internet? Well, I don't know. We have the internet. We already have the internet. We have ways to get people the internet without putting up 40,000 satellites. We already have internet. We have a lot of internet. I don't know necessarily that we need to ban the internet, but I don't know that we need 40,000 satellites in space giving us high-speed internet at the flip of a switch. But I don't know. Can we put mirrors to reflect radiation back to the sun in space on all of these satellites? I don't know. Should we do that? Is that a bad idea? Is that crazy? Is that a lunatic idea? In space, no one can hear you fart. Yes. Scott Lanham says, let's talk about how Jimmy Dore supports the Boogaloo Boys. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into that conversation, but did you watch the interview? I thought it was a pretty cool interview. And I thought, so what has happened to the Boogaloo Boys is the same thing that's happened to QAnon, which is like, not saying that I support QAnon. I'm just saying, instead of people going and actually understanding what QAnon is, or going to, watch some QAnon videos or look at what QAnon was posting or try to figure it out for themselves, instead of interacting with the QAnon people themselves, they just take the characterization or the caricature of the mainstream media that they put on QAnon or Boogaloo Boys, as well. We can apply that to Boogaloo Boys as well. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, they're all Nazi, right-wing, white supremacist fascists. When that's not true, right? So that's not true. That's not how the Boogaloo Boys started. And if you listen to that interview, you will learn that that is not true. And the Boogaloo Boys are not about right-wing fascism or Nazism. They do security at BLM protests. They are in league with Antifa and BLM and they're just anti-establishment. So again, the separation is not right and left. The separation is not white or black. The separation is not us against them or Americans against Americans. It's Americans against the top, against the power structure, which is trying to foster or foment this divide. And they do that by putting stupid shit articles into the media. The Boogaloo Boys are all fascist and racist. QAnon are all just a bunch of crazy, insane Nazis. That's not true. It's just not true. But if you don't actually go find out for yourself, then you wouldn't know that. Did I need to go on that rant? I don't know if I needed to, but anyways. But anyways, the statement that Jimmy Dore supports the Boogaloo Boys is totally whack. Like, he doesn't support the Boogaloo Boys. He just interviewed a Boogaloo Boy, and he's like, tell me what it's really about. Please, let me know what it's really about. And the guy said, this is what it's really about. And there was nothing wrong with that interview. There was nothing wrong with, taking in the information and going like, hey, actually, you guys are pretty cool. Not bad. We agree on some things. We disagree on other things. That's not the same as Jimmy Dore supports Boogaloo Boys. So I don't know, man. Are you, just trying to inject, this neoliberal nonsense into the conversation? Or if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But I just talked about it. Anyways. Go do the research for yourself. Go, get in contact with people. Don't be afraid of conversations. Don't be afraid of taking in information. Especially don't be afraid of taking in information which contradicts the mainstream narrative, because they want to control your thoughts. They want to manufacture consent. They want to make sure that you believe what they want you to believe. And if you believe anything outside of what they want you to believe, then you're very wrong. You're really dangerous. So you might be a domestic terrorist. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, rant over. Let's move on. Rockfin people, how you doing? Kathmandu, what's going on? Kathmandu, watching on Rockfin. So is Osama. Anyways, Osama really likes nuke pigs in space. Yeah, we got a few people watching, 7 people watching on Rockfin. Can we get more people on Rockfin today before we're done? A ranting and a rootin' and a tootin'. Osama, you're cracking me up today. You are cracking me up. But y'all crack me up every day. Let's go to this tweet from Paul Dawson. And let me make sure dang it all to crap stank. I can't, do you like that one? I can't get my buttons to work today. I'll try to just deal with it. Paul Dawson says, I find it hard to exaggerate the peril. He's quoting from David Attenborough. This is the new extinction, and we are halfway through it. We are in terrible, terrible trouble, and the longer we wait to do something about it, the worse it is going to get. Anyway, somebody, good follow-up tweet said you could make a start by banning hordes of film crews continually jetting around the world, creating a supermassive carbon footprint in their wake, as they inform us about the dire consequences of the rest of the populace doing likewise. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I thought that pretty cool. Again, we already know the perils. We already know the Earth is in a bad way. We know all about climate change. We know all about the disappearing ice. We know all about it. We don't really need more crews and more teams and more scientific exploration and data collection. We actually don't need any of it. What we need is for people to completely focus their entire attention on the emergency at hand and how are we going to transform ourselves or our society if we're even going to have a chance of surviving. That should be the focus. We don't need to watch any more documentaries on Netflix. We don't need an investigative team telling us how bad the biosphere is on Netflix. That's not doing anything for it. And if you want to extend that to this channel, you could probably do that too. Well, we don't need anybody getting on YouTube every day and telling us how bad everything is. True, but they're not giving it to you like I gave it to you. So there. But I actually am encouraging people to start doing something about it, or start spreading the message, or start telling her, what I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily jetting around the globe trying to go like, here we are on location in the Himalayas where all the ice is melting. That's what I'm not doing that. I'm just sitting in my garage covering articles for you. Though my footprint be high compared to the rest of the world, it is lower than most. In my defense, I'm doing the best I can with the situation at hand. David Attenborough, the voice of our planet, things are going to get worse. The voice of some of the most stunning nature documentaries ever made is pessimistic about the future of wildlife on Earth. Why would that be? Now Attenborough is coming into a slightly different role, advocating for fleeting biodiversity and ecosystems. Well, yeah. And the first thing you could do is just try to restore those as best you can and try to reduce your footprint on the planet. Oh, Gene, I appreciate you. You're pretty adorable yourself. Basil Peterson says trees lose their leaves to give back to what they have taken. Yes. Kiwi Bear. Muzza says give it back. What's up, Kiwi Bear? How you doing? Yeah. Advocate for biodiversity and saving ecosystems, I'd say is the place to be. We all should be advocating, and we all should be lowering our consumption footprint as fast as we can, as best as we can. Do your very best. If you're involved in a a very destructive activity that, if it's your job or whatever it is that you're doing, think about your impact on the planet and think about how maybe you could change your life to stop that activity. I do it every day. I urge other people to do it every day. Anyways, I'm not going to read the whole conversation. I just kind of wanted to give you the headline of that. Something that, kind of along the lines of tell us something we don't already know, but needs to be said. It needs to be said. Lastly, and very quickly, I wanted to cover this from Go Green. See. Go Green tweets this out. Geoengineer the planet. More scientists now say it must be an option. Gadzoinks. This is probably an older article. And this is from 2019. I'm not going to read all of this either. I'm just kind of hitting the high points for you. Human intervention with the climate system has long been viewed as an ill-advised and risky step, even though it's kind of what we're doing every single day, that we continue to chew the earth up in the name of human progress. Viewed as an ill-advised and risky step to slow global warming, but with carbon emissions soaring, initiatives to study and develop geoengineering technologies are gaining traction as a potential last resort. Unfortunately, that is true. Unfortunately, that is true, and probably, as time will inevitably move forward, it will pretty much be an inevitable or a given that we are going to do these technologies. The question is, can we choose technologies that are less impactful or less destructive? I don't know. Time is no longer on our side. One geoengineering advocate, former British government chief scientist David King, told a conference last fall, what we do over the next 10 years will determine the future of humanity for the next 10,000 years. And that, pretty spot on. We don't have a lot of time since we're, anywhere between 1.5 and 2 point something actual temperature over baseline. So we're at the end run for the human species and for probably the rest of the planet. So we're still here. Not a lot of time left for us to still be here. We are running out of time to mitigate catastrophic climate change, says one scientist. The study's prospective authors, well, hold on, let's go back here. United States scientists are on the case. The National Academies last October launched a study into sunlight reflection technologies. Does that sound like the MIR project? Including their feasibility, impacts, and risks and governance requirements. Marcia McNutt, president of the National Academy of Sciences, says we are running out of time to mitigate catastrophic climate change. Some of these interventions may need to be considered in the future. Yeah, they are already being considered, and they have already been long considered. This whole may need to be considered in the future. That's a nice bit of propaganda there, but thank you, Miss McNutt. The study's prospective authors held their first meeting in Washington, D.C. at the end of April. Speakers included, of course, David Keith, a Harvard University physicist who has developed his own patented technology for using chemistry to remove CO2 directly from the atmosphere. Patented technology. Did you catch that? Oh, yes. I own it. It belongs to me. Guys, I have this technology. It's going to save the planet. I own it. It belongs to me. And Kelly Wanser of the Marine Cloud Brightening Project, which is studying the efficacy of seeding clouds with sea salt and other materials to reflect more sunlight back into space. The project is preparing for future field trials. Again, this is funny. We're preparing to try this out in the field. We're going to try these technologies, sea salt, spraying sea salt in the sky. We're going to try this technology and see what happens. Okie dokie. So hilarious. This is just the funniest shit. China, too, has an active government-funded research program. It insists it has no current plans for deployment, but is looking, among other things, at how solar shading might slow the rapid melting of Himalayan glaciers. Well, they have rolled out some climate engineering technologies and programs just recently. They just, unveil. Oh, hey, no, we're going to do it, guys. We're doing it. They had no plans in 2019, but 2020 is a different story. Guys, we're doing it. Geoengineering the climate to halt global warming has been discussed almost as long as the threat of warming itself. Well, Jesus Christ. But we're just going to try these technologies out in the field in 2021. For real. American researchers back in the 1960s suggested floating billions of white objects, such as golf balls, on the ocean to reflect sunlight. That sounds like something the U.S. military would do. Well, golf balls are white. I don't know. Could work. Sounds brilliant. In 1977, Cesar Marchetti of the Austria-based International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis discussed ways of catching all of Europe's CO2 emissions and injecting them into sinking Atlantic Ocean currents. That is super complicated. Super complicated. Sounds like to me, In 1982, Soviet scientist Mikhail Budiko, 1982, this is a long time ago, proposed filling the stratosphere with sulfate particles to reflect sunlight. I mean, it sounds like the patented technology from David Keith. But this is, was Soviet scientist the first to propose this? Heck, The first experiments to test the idea of fertilizing the ocean with iron to stimulate the growth of CO2-absorbing algae were carried out by British researchers in 1995. And I'm sure somebody thought that one up probably before that too. 2 years later, Edward Teller, inventor of the hydrogen bomb, among other lovely inventions, but thank God for hydrogen bombs, proposed putting giant mirrors into space. No, I just proposed that. That's my idea. Can I patent it? I'm going to go patent it. No, I think probably somebody already has. Still, many climate scientists until recently regarded such proposals as fringe or part of secret black military experimental operations. You know, those fringy things that they do, if not heretical, arguing that they undermine the case for urgent reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. A group of scientists writing in Nature as recently as April last year called solar geoengineering outlandish and unsettling, redolent of science fiction. Anyways, but the mood is shifting. The mood is shifting. How about your mood? Is your mood shifting? Oops. Sorry. The mood is shifting, guys. Anyways, possible geoengineering schemes and schedules are now being discussed. We know all about that. There's a plan. It was published last fall by Gurno Wagner. In 15 years' time, the impacts of warming worsen. Planes loaded with sulfate particles start taking off from airfields around the world. They fly to 65,000 feet, well above existing air lanes, and spray their loads. All right, I'm 12. They spray their loads into the stratosphere. Woo! 4,000 flights in the first year, 8,000 in the second, 12,000 in the third, and so on until after 15 years, the sky is completely covered in airplanes spraying their loads all day long. Fleets of purpose-built high-altitude tankers are making 60,000 flights annually. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. The thickening shroud of particles would fight climate change by mimicking the output of volcanic eruptions that deflect solar radiation streaming into the atmosphere. Anyways, the planned 15-year human-made eruption would shave 0.3 degrees off of warming. Golly, this is just comedy. This is high comedy. I'm having too much fun with this. I probably shouldn't be. All of that would shave 0.3 degrees off of warming. Okay. Having the likely increase during the time. Okay. Okie dokie. Oh, this is just brilliant. This is just the biggest and the brightest minds are working hard on this. But believe science and all that. Believe science, especially when it's got a patent attached to it. That's the best. That's the time when I really want to believe science. When something is, scientifically, put out there to help human beings, and it's got a patent attached to it. That's when I really want to believe in it. That's when I know that it's only for everyone's good, and couldn't be bad at all. Anyways, this goes on and on and on. I can't go on and on. I just wanted to have a little laugh at that. We've all read these articles, and we've covered this many, many times. Oh, let me just very quickly before I leave. There may be a simpler solution. Maybe the most promising answer lies in going back to nature, in restoring natural forests. A broad coalition of environmentalists, from those who embrace corporate environmentalists, such as the corporate environmentalism. Now there's an oxymoron for you. Such as the Nature Conservancy, to the British anti-capitalist columnist George Monbiot have recently endorsed this natural climate solution. They concluded that a paper concluded a third of the measures required between now and 2030 to keep the world on track to stabilize climate could be achieved cost effectively by boosting natural ecosystems. A whole lot cheaper and a whole lot less destructive than sending 60,000 planes a year into the skies, spraying their load all over you and me. That could take an extra 11 billion tons more CO2 out of the air each year. This could be done mostly by reforestation, but also by better soil management, the protection of carbon-rich wetlands such as peatlands, and growing more trees on farmland. Proponents see this not as a substitute for emissions reductions, but as a biological bridge. So what if we did this and reduced emissions with maybe some very well thought out, just a little bit of technology to help keep temperatures from blowing, sky high? Possibly. And then they go on to talk about rewilding. Natural regrowth is usually better than planting, since allowing nature to choose which species predominate during natural regeneration allows for local adaptation and higher functional diversity. And we know this. So actually, on the whole, I'd say, fairly good balanced article, because they go into geoengineering and end up saying, hey, maybe we should naturally restore the climate. Maybe we should do that. What do you think, guys? Should we do it? Should we do it like that? Kira Hike says, come on, they're going to geoengineer the environment. That's conspiracy talk. Right. It's crazy. It's crazy talk. Oh, the Kraken is back, Jesus. If I weren't such I'm not that much of a conspiracy-minded person. Har, har, har. But why is it that all of my live streams start with no crackle and then get the crackle? I wonder why. But thanks for letting me know, guys. Thanks for letting me know. Anyways, the dude says, how much sunlight can be dimmed without loss of plant light? Also a very good question, right? Because if you did stuff like that, that would really have probably a very negative effect on the biosphere, right? On how plants are able to grow. Good point. Yes, Gritty chops. Trees, more trees, and more trees. Yeah, I fixed the crackle. Anyways, guys, Keith Hayes says biochar and drop the techno fixes. Last Monkey says overheating something. Possibly. Anyways, guys, so yeah, I began this video saying I wasn't going to keep it very long, and here we are 50 minutes later. But I do have to go. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. And I will be back tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until next time, peace.